The morning my badge stopped working, I hadn't even had my first sip of coffee yet. It was 7:46 a.m., and the security guard barely looked up from his phone as he muttered, "Doesn't scan, sir." No apology, no concern, just a flick of a scanner and a shrug. I stood there, one hand still holding the banana I grabbed from my kitchen counter, staring through the thick glass doors of Cravestown Technologies like they had somehow turned against me overnight. 12 hours earlier, I'd walked out of those same doors at 1:12 a.m., the time etched into my memory by the last git commit I pushed. Hotfix, restore auto-scaling for prod. The hallway inside was still fresh in my mind. The hum of the server room just beyond the frosted glass. The glow of blue monitors casting long shadows across the minimalist lounge, and the soft flicker of overhead lights that never seemed to fully turn off. And now I was on the outside. Headphones still around my neck, no reply from HR, logged out of Slack, and my manager, Brent Halliday, wasn't answering his phone. Straight to voicemail. No callback. That's when I saw it. An email from payroll. No greeting. No signature. Just a cold, flat notification. Effective immediately. Title has been adjusted to Associate DevOps Engineer to reflect alignment with your recent performance review. Compensation to remain unchanged. Performance review? There hadn't been one. I felt my jaw clench as my thumb hovered over the screen. The message was a joke, but not the funny kind. It was corporate sleight of hand, the kind of maneuver someone pulls behind closed doors when they've already decided you're disposable. But then I remembered something that didn't feel important until that exact second. It was during a sprint retrospective the week before. Brent had made a joke, something about how I should ease up on the alpha energy because it's a company, not a hackathon. A couple of folks laughed awkwardly. One of them was Natalie from finance. She chuckled and added, "Maybe he'll get humbled by the system. We all do eventually." Back then, I thought they were just being weird. Philosophical, maybe. Now I saw it clearly. It was planned. Strip the badge. Nuke the title. Keep the output. Quietly sideline the guy who pointed out vulnerabilities in the Kubernetes cluster during the board meeting. The same guy who didn't join their Whiskey Fridays or play office politics like it was a sport. They didn't realize what I'd done. Because during the same week they were trying to clip my wings, I'd quietly rerouted every major deployment dependency through a provisioning gateway. A gateway that, on paper, belonged to a third-party vendor. The name? Ashgrove Cloud Solutions, LLC. And guess who legally registered Ashgrove 18 months earlier while assisting Natalie's own department on cloud liability optimization? Yeah, that would be me. I didn't storm off or make a scene. I walked away slowly like I was just out for air, past the vending machines, the quiet print station, and that ridiculous motivational mural near the elevators that read, "Agility starts with vulnerability." The irony nearly made me laugh. They thought I'd fold, but they didn't know that Ashgrove wasn't just a clever alias buried in a vendor list. It was a system, a silent observer, a Trojan horse. And it all started as a joke? No, actually it started as a placeholder name. Ashgrove was what I called the temp vendor we needed when our CTO, Clay Drummond, asked me to spin up a third-party provisioning route to mask internal dependencies during our last audit. "Just something quick," he said, cradling his oversized mug that said Code Whisper. I was elbows deep in broken Terraform scripts at the time, cleaning up after an intern's disastrous rollout. "We'll replace it later," Clay had said, tapping his coffee like a gavel. They never did. Nobody ever replaced it. Nobody ever asked. Nobody ever audited it. So I kept it. I registered Ashgrove Cloud Solutions, LLC in Delaware. Low scrutiny, low questions. I snagged a cheap domain, ashgrovecloud.dev, and slapped together a basic landing page with a boilerplate case study and a fake chatbot named Jackson. The chatbot's job? Respond to RFPs with technical fluff and buzzword bingo. And here's the punchline. I build them, my own company, through their managed API gateway. Through Ashgrove. Every interaction, every deployment, every rollback and hotfix routed through my system. And they never noticed. Because why would they? I made it look official. I made it look boring. Back then, it wasn't about revenge. I wasn't bitter. Not yet. I just wanted leverage. A ripcord. Something to pull if the elevator ever stopped going up. And on that cold Wednesday morning, it stopped. When I got home, I poured a coffee, sat down at my desk, and logged into Ashgrove's backend. The activity logs lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. Jenkins builds, Helm charts, Docker pulls, pinging like sonar on a shipwreck. All of it still tethered to my Phantom company. And then I did something I hadn't done in months. I emailed procurement. Subject: Ashgrove pricing update. Urgent SLA alignment. Hi team. Per recent SLA demand increases and incident response load, Ashgrove Cloud is revising our hourly rate to $1,800 per hour, retroactive to last Friday. You've currently logged 44 hours. No drama, just billing. I hit send. Then I poured a second cup of coffee and watched as chaos bloomed like a virus inside their Slack instance. Oops, which I still had admin access to via the alerting bot I'd built 6 months earlier. Brent, WTF is Ashgrove, and why are we getting billed $79,200? Natalie, wasn't that Jackson's vendor? Clay, Lupin Legal. Don't reply directly. Too late, because by the time Clay asked, wait, who owns Ashgrove? The billing had auto-renewed, and I had already scheduled a lovely little DNS redirect if they missed the next invoice. Also, I drafted a resignation letter 3 days earlier. It was sitting in their legal inbox, flagged by their spam filter for excessive sarcasm. Very on brand. By the next morning, the vultures started circling. My inbox pinged nonstop. 39 emails. 2 voicemails from an outside legal consultant. Some guy named Travis who had compliance strategist in his signature and a LinkedIn photo that screamed former frat president turned damage control fixer. The cherry on top? A calendar invite from Natalie titled Urgent Realignment Discussion. Please join immediately. Realignment. That's corporate code for, we try to screw you, and now we're scared you kept receipts. I clicked into the Zoom meeting in my softest robe, coffee in hand, not a single care left to give. Natalie was already there, jaw tight, her beige blazer pressed so stiff it could have stood on its own. Brent joined next, all faux casual in a startup hoodie, his eyes darting like he expected the IRS to rappel through his ceiling. A few seconds later, Clay appeared, hair slicked back like he'd just lost a bet and was trying to act like he didn't care. Jackson, Natalie began, her voice wrapped in that kind of weaponized concern that only HR professionals can perfect. I think there's been a misunderstanding about Ashgrove's role in our infrastructure. Misunderstanding implies someone understood what they signed, I said calmly, sipping my coffee. Which none of you did, if we're being honest. Because if you had read the contract I sent last year, you'd remember Clause 12.b. Third-party provisioning gateway exclusivity. Clay flinched. Brent blinked like I'd just smacked him across the face with a subpoena. Let's not make this litigious, Clay muttered, already sweating through his quarter zip. Litigious, I replied, leaning in, would require you owning the infrastructure you deploy to. You don't. You own a license to access a provisioning system that's controlled by Ashgrove, an entity you never vetted, never replaced, and never questioned. Until now, Brent finally spoke. You tricked us. I raised an eyebrow. I followed your instructions. You said, find a vendor fast. We'll replace it later. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Clay muttered something about breach of trust. You mean like when you stripped my title without a review? I shot back. Or when you had Natalie from finance demote me in the system and ghost my HR queries. Don't act shocked. I've got every timestamp, every commit, every Slack message. Natalie cleared her throat like she was choking on a paperclip. This isn't personal, Jackson, she said. Try to keep her voice steady. This is about compliance. I smiled gently, like a parent watching a child lie about breaking a vase. So is my invoice. Then it happened. An alert popped up in the corner of my screen. Real time. Ashgrove's backend flagged a deployment event. CI/CD pipeline manually triggered from IP block 34.102.x.x. You're still using Ashgrove, I said casually, tilting my mug. Shall we round that up to 10 billable hours for stress? Clay's voice cracked. What do you want? Payment, obviously. Retroactive title correction. And whoever replaces me gets personally on board by me, am I right? Natalie gasped. That's extortion. No, I said, calmly closing my laptop. That's DevOps. I ended the call. Let them sweat. Let them scramble. Because they hadn't even begun to understand the depth of what I had wrapped around their precious infrastructure. The interdependencies. The critical paths. The two vulnerabilities only I knew about. Well, for now, I gave them 3 days. Day 1, silence. Not even a canned response. Day 2, they escalated. That morning, I received an email from someone named Elijah Cole, signature block red cloud security specialist, independent consultant. Gmail address, Calendly link, the works. Subject line screamed in all caps. Urgent. Lark's infrastructure takeover request. Elijah wanted temporary root access. Claimed he needed to validate integrity and perform a handoff audit. I didn't reply. Instead, I logged into Ashgrove's admin console and quietly added his IP range to the auto-throttle firewall script I'd written months ago. Every fourth request he made would reroute to a dummy staging environment packed with corrupted YAML configs and a README file that said, "Maybe respect senior engineers next time, especially the ones you try to ghost." Day 3, I woke up to a $67,500 payment deposited into Ashgrove's business account. No memo, no message, just a transfer from Craveston's holding firm. I stared at the transaction screen for a moment, expressionless. That amount covered exactly 37.5 billable hours at the new rate, plus auto-renewal from the previous week. Neat math, cool math, but something didn't feel right. I refreshed the logs. Sure enough, Jenkins traffic dropped. Panic threads in Slack? Gone quiet. But just past midnight, a tremor, an automated alert lit up my dashboard. CI/CD script mismatch detected. Hash signature failed. Foreign deploy identified. They try to bypass me. I leaned back in my chair, breathing slowly. They were bold, I'd give them that. Arrogant too, but dumb, spectacularly dumb. Because what they didn't realize was that 6 months ago, I embedded a dead man's switch deep in the pipeline. I called it Tea Party. Fitting, I thought, because that's what happens when the underpaid decide they've had enough. The moment they attempted a push without my key signature, the system triggered a chain reaction. Every Helm chart reverted to a backup image from 14 months ago. TLS certificates expired on cue. East Coast traffic rerouted to a deprecated legacy environment. And every login screen across their internal tools now read, Error 451. Service unavailable for jerks. They tried calling. I didn't pick up. Brent texted at 12:48 a.m. This is sabotage. I replied, this is documentation. They forgot who built the kingdom. And worse, they assumed I didn't remember the tunnels. By 3:22 a.m., they shut down everything. And that was before the real leak. At 3:27, I got a Slack screenshot from Ashley, a QA intern I once mentored. She was still in one of the engineering subthreads, buried under hash reorg, and someone had dropped a spreadsheet titled, Post Jackson Infrastructure Hiring Plan. First line read, replace Jackson with Elijah Cole. Target salary, $182,000. $182,000 for the guy who thought YAML was a cereal grain. They were trying to erase me, cheaply. And now I was done being polite. At exactly 7:06 a.m. the next day, I didn't log in remotely. I walked in, not through the front lobby, not with an employee badge. I walked straight through the loading dock entrance of Craveston Technologies, past the delivery truck unloading cables and office snacks, coffee in one hand, the other casually in my coat pocket. Security blinked, confused, but they didn't stop me. They couldn't, because the third-party guard were still using an old cached whitelist of Tier 1 override admins. And guess whose name they never updated? Mine. It's poetic in a sad sort of way. The same name Clay Drummond tried to erase from the logs, still listed under Infrastructure Override, Level 0 Access. I walked past reception like a ghost who remembered everything. Past the break room fridge stocked with kombucha no one drank. Past the wall mural that said collaboration is currency, commissioned by an artist who probably cried in their car the day they finished it. The building was too quiet. That tense, vacuumed silence where people are present but hiding, watching you walk by like office plants that forgot how to breathe. The glass-walled conference room was already full when I opened the door. Natalie, arms crossed, face stiffer than budget season. Clay, pacing jittery, his hair combed back like it might hold him together. Elijah, fresh haircut, smug grin, and a MacBook open like it was a shield. "Ah," Natalie said coolly. "Nice of you to join us. Mr. Rowe." "Funny. I thought I was junior," I replied, easing into the empty chair across from them. "But sure, let's pretend we're all equals for the next 7 minutes." Clay jumped in. "You caused a service blackout across 6 regions. Clients are threatening legal action." I raised an eyebrow. "No, you caused it by trying to force deploy through a vendor gateway clearly marked protected. The documentation was in the repo." Elijah leaned forward. I didn't see any documentation attached to the handoff. I turned to him slowly. "Did you check the failover directory? There's a README file. Inside that, a tutorial video, time-stamped, digitally notarized, explains every SLA trigger and escalation lock." He blinked. Silence. Natalie didn't even blink. "What do you want?" There it was, the mating call of the modern C-suite. I smiled. I opened my laptop, logged into Ashgrove's admin console through the guest Wi-Fi, still unsecured by the way, and toggled a soft maintenance override labeled Phase Roman 2. Every screen in the room flickered, then dimmed, then turned blood red. A single message blinked in unison across the conference room. "This system is owned by Ashgrove Cloud Solutions, LLC. Unauthorized access constitutes breach of Federal Contract Code 88.4. Contact vendor rep to restore services." Clay's face drained like a man watching his bank account hit zero in real time. Natalie paled. Elijah instinctively reached for his phone. I raised a hand. "Now listen," I said softly, calm as a loaded gun on velvet. "I architected your infrastructure. I wrote your patch policy. I built your provisioning layers, cut your blind spots, and gave you 3 different chances to treat me like more than just another engineer with a heartbeat. I stood. For all that, you gave me a demotion, a ghost consultant, a spreadsheet trying to replace me with a cheaper man who can't spell redundancy." I reached into my bag, pulled out a printed contract, and placed it on the table. Backdated to the original Ashgrove SLA, updated with one new clause. Non-negotiable admin transfer buyout. You want full control? Pay for it. Price, $750,000. Due, 15 calendar days. Terms, no haggling, no delays. Natalie's voice cracked. "You're insane." "No," I said, walking to the door. "I'm expensive." By noon, it was war. No emails, no calls, just corporate silence. Dense, heavy, like a sealed vault of denial. The kind that makes you check your rearview mirror twice on the way home. But I wasn't worried, because while they stewed in damage control meetings and desperate Slack threads, I was watching. At 12:43 p.m., I got a ping, one of the old alert demons I'd set up before they even hired Elijah. It was a canary signal from a forgotten monitoring script they never decommissioned because Brent never actually learned how cron jobs work. The alert was simple. New subnet activity detected. Possible clone protocol in motion. Device name, Phoenix_broad_backup_V3. They were trying to fork the entire infrastructure. I smiled. Gutsy move. Stupid but gutsy. You'd think after a full-scale blackout and a public red screen humiliation ritual, they'd throw in the towel. But no, they were still betting I'd blink first. So I let them try. For the next 4 hours, I sat at my desk with an old jazz record spinning low and watched the Phoenix recovery team flail like rookies in a boot camp. They scraped repo archives, cloned Docker images, even tried rebuilding the CI/CD pipeline from old container snapshots. They missed the core fact. Every single operation, every keystroke, required Ashgrove's provisioning certificate. And that cert expired the minute I activated Phase Roman 2. But the best part? I didn't stop them. At 5:22 p.m., another ping. Unauthorized Terraform apply detected. State right failed. Region, AWS US, East 1. Response, permission denied. Owner mismatch. Ashgrove 0x231A. They were now poking the bear. Perfect. Because every unauthorized action triggered an embedded kill switch script deep inside their container orchestration logic. That script dumped a full log of what they tried, how they failed, and where they went wrong. And every time they tried again, I got another update. Another glimpse into their incompetence. Elijah was Googling how to reverse engineer container builds from compressed logs. Brent was pushing half-baked scripts into a staging environment without validating dependency chains. And Clay? Clay was in full meltdown mode, yelling through muted Slack huddles, asking why the beta login page still had my face on it. Then came the cherry. At 7:03 p.m., a Slack screenshot landed in my inbox. It came from Sierra, another intern I once mentored, who clearly hadn't forgotten our Wednesday lunches or the time I helped her debug a 3-week-old cache issue nobody else took seriously. In the thread, Natalie had written, "If he refuses the buyout, we'll sue him into personal bankruptcy." Fear's a powerful motivator. Elijah chimed in, "We got backup infra. We just need 48 hours. And Clay? I'll reach out to AWS. We have friends there." He's finished. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I opened my encrypted legal folder and began dragging files into a new email draft. State registration documents, vendor contracts, digital notary logs, every chain of custody record from day one. The final nail? A photo of Clay grinning during the signing of the original Ashgrove authorization form, holding a craft beer like it was a damn Oscar. Subject line: intent to litigate, fraudulent infrastructure replication and SLA violation. CC2. Legal at Craveston. Compliance at Pelican Biotech, their largest enterprise client. And just for fun, their CTO at Corporate Alias. Then I activated Phase Roman 3. This time, it wasn't red screens or a hard shutdown. Phase Roman 3 wasn't about theatrics. It was about consequence. Every Jenkins console, every deployment log, every automated test result now displayed a simple message. Trust is root. You lost both. Countdown to infrastructure revocation. 72 hours. No threats. No ransomware. Just a ticking clock. If they didn't pay in 72 hours, Ashgrove would revoke every license, uninstall every shared certificate, and trigger a cascading erasure protocol that would brick their cloud backbone down to the last YAML stub. CI/CD? Gone. And for templates? Gone. Secrets vaults? Wiped. There would be no backups, no do-overs. And I wasn't bluffing. By morning, the rats were already drowning. 17 missed calls. Legal threats from their outside counsel. A DocuSign offer appeared in my inbox, dressed up like a peace treaty. But it read like a gag order. Confidentiality clauses. Reduced payout. Non-disparagement language thicker than cement. At 10:31 a.m., I declined visually. I printed the contract, recorded a video of myself burning it, and emailed the clip with the subject line. Draft rejected. Smoke signal sent. My inbox erupted. AWS Legal. Their risk compliance VP. Even a faceless rep from their board. Suddenly, everyone wanted dialogue. But the best email didn't come from Craveston. It came from Pelican Biotech, their largest client, CC'd on my litigation warning. "Hi, Jackson. We were unaware our environments were provisioned through an unvetted third-party vendor. Can you confirm the legal scope of Ashgrove's control? Until clarified, we'll be pausing rollout and freezing payment obligations." In enterprise speak, that means, we're yanking our $3.2 million contract until you fix this mess. A few minutes later, Clay emailed me directly. Subject: let's talk human to human. I opened it while sipping cold brew with a splash of vengeance. "Jackson, I'm sorry it came to this. You were vital to our growth. We made mistakes. We should have communicated better. Let's find a solution that respects both sides. Please don't escalate further." Respect? They buried me in silence, replaced me with a man who didn't know how to validate a cert, then tried to bankrupt me when I pushed back. And now they wanted mutual respect. I replied in 4 lines. "You have 24 hours. Full buyout or I walk Ashgrove into Pelican's arms. No more talks. No more delays. You know how this ends. Jay." Then I sent a final message to every deployment terminal inside Craveston. Ashgrove decommission protocol initiated. Estimated time to critical failure, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. I wasn't playing games anymore. I was the dealer now, and the house was burning. This time, it wasn't red screens or a hard shutdown. Phase Roman 3 wasn't about theatrics. It was about consequence. Every Jenkins console, every deployment log, every automated test result now displayed a simple message. Trust is root. You lost both. Countdown to infrastructure revocation. 72 hours. No threats. No ransomware. Just a ticking clock. If they didn't pay in 72 hours, Ash Grove would revoke every license, uninstall every shared certificate, and trigger a cascading erasure protocol that would brick their cloud backbone down to the last YAML stub. CI/CD? Gone. Infra templates? Gone. Secrets vaults? Wiped. There would be no backups. No do-overs. And I wasn't bluffing. By morning, the rats were already drowning. 17 missed calls. Legal threats from their outside counsel. A DocuSign offer appeared in my inbox, dressed up like a peace treaty. But it read like a gag order. Confidentiality clauses. Reduced payout. Non-disparagement language thicker than cement. At 10:31 a.m., I declined visually. I printed the contract, recorded a video of myself burning it, and emailed the clip with the subject line. Draft rejected. Smoke signal sent. My inbox erupted. AWS legal. Their risk compliance VP. Even a faceless rep from their board. Suddenly, everyone wanted dialogue. But the best email didn't come from Craveston. It came from Pelican Biotech, their largest client, CC'd on my litigation warning. Hi, Jackson. We were unaware our environments were provisioned through an unvetted third-party vendor. Can you confirm the legal scope of Ash Grove's control? Until clarified, we'll be pausing rollout and freezing payment obligations. In enterprise speak, that means we're yanking our $3.2 million contract until you fix this mess. A few minutes later, Clay emailed me directly. Subject, let's talk human to human. I opened it while sipping cold brew with a splash of vengeance. Jackson, I'm sorry it came to this. You were vital to our growth. We made mistakes. We should have communicated better. Let's find a solution that respects both sides. Please don't escalate further. Respect? They buried me in silence, replaced me with a man who didn't know how to validate assert, then tried to bankrupt me when I pushed back. And now they wanted mutual respect. I replied in 4 lines. You have 24 hours. Full buyout or I walk Ash Grove into Pelican's arms. No more talks. No more delays. You know how this ends. Jay. Then I sent a final message to every deployment terminal inside Craveston. Ash Grove decommission protocol initiated. Estimated time to critical failure. 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. I wasn't playing games anymore. I was the dealer now, and the house was burning. The hours dragged by like smoke curling through a locked room. No emails. No messages. Not even a Slack leak. Just radio silence. Strategic, calculated, corporate. I knew the type. They weren't ignoring me. They were in war rooms. Conference calls. Emergency whiteboard sessions led by consultants with buzzwords and no answers. But they didn't need strategy. They needed a wire transfer. At 11:47 a.m., with just over an hour left on the countdown, my phone buzzed. One notification. Incoming payment confirmed. $750,000. Ash Grove Cloud Solutions, LLC. No memo line. No apology. Just numbers and silence. They paid, and not a minute too early. I sat there, staring at the transaction, unmoved. There was no celebration, no smile, just the sharp, still quiet of a storm finally landing where it was always going to hit. My phone vibrated again. Clay. I let it ring. He got the deal. The deal they should have made the moment they demoted me. The deal they could have reached with a single conversation before they let Natalie rewrite my title and Brent lock me out. Now they got to keep the kingdom. But they paid the toll. I clicked the Jenkins dashboard open one last time. The message was still blinking, bold and red, in every corner of their deployment pipeline. I flipped a switch and shut it down. Ash Grove was offline. Their world would run again. But they would never forget who turned the lights off. I closed my laptop, stood from my desk, and grabbed my bag. There was nothing left to prove, nothing left to say. I wasn't interested in watching them recover. I wasn't waiting around to see if Elijah managed to inherit the system he clearly didn't understand. That wasn't my story anymore. As I walked out of my apartment, I heard Clay's final voicemail come through, muted but clear enough. "Jackson, please, we can still fix this. Let's just be reasonable. We don't have to ruin everything." But it had already been ruined. Not by me, by them. They thought silence would save them. They thought I would fade. Instead, I built an empire beneath their feet, and they didn't notice until they were standing on nothing but ash. I didn't go back to Craveston, not for an apology, not for a farewell, not even to shake the dust off my old desk chair. The chapter was closed, the ink dried in the ashes of their own making. Instead, I started over, not in the desperate, patch-together-resume kind of way. I mean truly started over, on my own terms with my own rules. I spent the next week incorporating a new venture, this time not hidden behind a shell company or buried in some vendor list. A real firm, under my real name, with every line of code signed and owned. Because if there's one thing Craveston taught me, it's this. When you build someone else's empire, they will always find a way to push you to the edge of your own creation. But when you build quietly, with precision and intent, you don't need permission to claim what's yours. You just need leverage and the patience to wait until the moment is right. They thought they could write me out of the system, that a badge and a job title define my worth, that they could lock me out of the very walls I wired together. What they forgot is this. You don't demote the architect and expect the building to stand. By the time they realized it, I wasn't just gone, I was ahead. Ashgrove lives on, not as a ghost company, not as a trapdoor, but as a reminder of what happens when you bet against the person who built your foundation while you were still learning how to spell infrastructure. I didn't burn their company down. I just let them walk into their own fire. And when they finally paid the price to walk back out, I was already building something stronger, where trust is earned, not extracted. Not again. Never again. If you've ever been underestimated, if they tried to erase your name from what you built, remember this. You don't need revenge. You need leverage. Like, comment, and subscribe if you know what it means to build in silence and rise when it counts.